Hare Krishna, everyone. Welcome back to the live studios here at Radha Lane. Yes, I said Radha Lane. It is actually an address, and you can send a letter or a package here if you'd like. And it's right next to Shri Shri Radha Nilamadava's beautiful temple here in ISKCON, Houston. And we've got guests from Conscious Houston, which is a new group that is being run by the youth of this community and attracting youth and beautiful youth, I might add. And first-timers, thank you very much for coming. They've been coming from December, so they're veterans. They know what's going on. Okay. So yes, we've reached the 9th chapter of the first canto of Srimad-Bhagavatam, the passing of Bhismadeva, one of the most poignant and touching pastimes in the whole Srimad-Bhagavatam. But before we do, we'll read this beautiful Sanskrit prayer along with the English, glorifying the Srimad-Bhagavatam by Srila Sanatana Goswami, who was the senior disciple of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and the disciple that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu spent more time teaching directly face-to-face than any other personality on the earth. And it goes like this. Sarva Shastrabdi Piyusha Sarva Vedaika Satpala Sarva Siddhanta Ratnaja Sarva Lokaika Drikprada. O nectar from the ocean of all scriptures, singular fruit of all the Vedas, rich mine of the precious gems of all conclusive truths, you are the only giver of light, the only giver of sight to all the worlds. Sarva Bhagavata Prana Srimad Bhagavata Prabho Kalidwandodita Ditya Sri Krishna Parivartita. O life air of all the Supreme Lord's devotees, O Master Srimad Bhagavatam, you are the sun risen in the darkness of Kali. You are the exact image of Sri Krishna. Paramananda Pataya Prema Varshaksharayate Sarvada Savasevyaya Sri Krishnaya Namostume. I bow down to you, who are supremely blissful to read. Your every syllable pours down a flood of prema. You can always be served by everyone. You are Sri Krishna himself. Madekabando Matsangin Madguru Man Mahadana Mannishtadaka Madbhagya Madananda Namostute. My only friend, my constant companion, my spiritual master, my great wealth, my savior, my good fortune, my source of ecstasy, I bow down to you. Asadu, sadhu tadhayin, atini chochata kada, hanamuncha kada chinmam, premnarit kantayospura. O bestower of saintliness to the unsaintly, O exalter of the most fallen, please never leave me. Always appear in my heart and my voice with pure love. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. All right. The Srimad Bhagavatam. When Krishna left this earth, the shelter went with him. Thank you. And he himself declared, along with Srila Vyasadeva, the author, well, not really the author, but the person who brought the Srimad-Bhagavatam into this universe at that time, he declared that the shelter that Krishna was giving was now being given by the Srimad-Bhagavatam. So the Srimad-Bhagavatam, which we are reading carefully and slowly, and is actually a literary incarnation of Krishna. Just like the holy name of Krishna is non-different than Krishna, because everything in the spiritual world is absolute, so the Srimad-Bhagavatam is non-different than Krishna. So by associating with the Srimad-Bhagavatam in the proper mentality, with the proper heart, one can see Krishna face to face through sound. Ninth chapter, first canto, the passing away of Bhismadeva in the presence of Lord Krishna. Text 1. Sutta Goswami said, being afraid for having killed so many subjects on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, Maharaj Yudhishthira, excuse me? Oh, I'm sorry, did I make a mistake? It's Canto 1, Chapter 9, Text 1. Sorry.
Text 19.
Text 19?
You started yesterday.
We're on 19? I just put it wrong on there. Uh-oh. Maybe. We went all the way to 19, did we? Well. Oh yeah, because we read all about the personalities. Yesterday we read a little bio of the different personalities who had come to be with Bhismadeva before he passed away. So we're on 19, are we?
Yes.
Okay, we'll go from 19. Sorry. Had some rather...
I think you can edit the title too on the live video.
Edit the title? What do you want to edit it to?
I thought you said you could edit it.
Yeah, we'd have to stop it and start it. You can edit it without starting it?
Yeah, you can edit it once you post it. Like once the recording is finished.
Okay, good. You can do that. Thanks. Okay. We're almost there. Thanks for that, Nitya. Okay, text 19. O King. Okay, who's speaking to who? A pop quiz. Don't mind.
Vishwadeva is speaking to you, Yudhishthira.
There you go. Very good. Ramdas has got it. Nailed it. First time. Okay. Conscious. Houston is in good hands. Okay, translation. O King, Lord Shiva, Narada, the sage amongst the demigods, and Kapila, the incarnation of Godhead, all know very confidentially about his glories through direct contact. Purport. Pure devotees of the Lord are all Buddhas, or persons who know the glories of the Lord in different transcendental loving services. As the Lord has innumerable expansions of his plenary form, there are innumerable pure devotees of the Lord who are engaged in the exchange of service of different humors. Ordinarily, there are 12 great devotees of the Lord, namely Brahma, Narada, Shiva, Kumara, Kapila, Manu, Prahlad, Bhishma, Janaka, Shukadeva Goswami, Bali Maharaj, and Yamaraj. Bhismadeva, although one of them, has mentioned only 3 important names of the 12 who know the glories of the Lord. Srila Vishwanatha Chakravarti Thakura, one of the great acharyas in the modern age, explains that Anubhava, or the glory of the Lord, is first appreciated by the devotee in ecstasy, manifesting the symptoms of perspiring, trembling, weeping, bodily eruptions, and so on, which are further enhanced by steady understanding of the glories of the Lord. Such different understandings of bhavas are exchanged between Yashoda and the Lord, binding the Lord by ropes, and in the chariot driving by the Lord in the exchange of love with Arjuna. These glories of the Lord are exhibited in his being subordinated before his devotees, and that is another feature of the glories of the Lord. Shukadeva Goswami and the Kumaras, although situated in the transcendental position, became converted by another feature of bhava and turned into pure devotees of the Lord. Tribulations imposed upon the devotees by the Lord constitute another exchange of transcendental bhava between the Lord and the devotees. The Lord says, I put my devotee into difficulty, and thus the devotee becomes more purified in exchanging transcendental bhava with me. Placing the devotee into material troubles means delivering him from the illusory material relations. The material relations are based on reciprocation of material enjoyment, which depends mainly on material resources. Therefore, when material resources are withdrawn by the Lord, the devotee is 100% attracted toward the transcendental loving service of the Lord. Thus, the Lord snatches the fallen soul from the mire of material existence. Tribulations offered by the Lord to his devotee are different from the tribulations resulting from vicious action. All these glories of the Lord are especially known to the great Mahajanas like Brahma, Shiva, Narada, Kapila, Kumara, and Bhishma, as mentioned above, and one is able to grasp it by their grace. Text 20. O King, that personality whom, out of ignorance only, you thought to be your maternal cousin, your very dear friend, well-wisher, counselor, messenger, benefactor, and so on, is that very personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. Purport. Lord Sri Krishna, although acting as the cousin, brother, friend, well-wisher, counselor, messenger, benefactor, and so on of the Pandavas, was still the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Out of his causeless mercy and favor upon his unalloyed devotees, he performs all kinds of service, but that does not mean that he has changed his position as the absolute person. To think of him as an ordinary man is the grossest type of ignorance. Text 21. Being the absolute personality of Godhead, he is present in everyone's heart. He is equally kind to everyone, and he is free from the false ego of differentiation. Therefore, whatever he does is free from material inebriety, and he is equibalanced. Purport. Because he is absolute, there is nothing different from him. He is Kaivalya. There is nothing except himself. Everything and everyone is the manifestation of his energy, and thus he is present everywhere by his energy, being non-different from it, just as the sun is present wherever there is sunshine. The sun is identified with every inch of the sun rays and every molecular particle of the rays. Similarly, the Lord is distributed by his different energies. He is Paramatma, or the Super Soul, present in everyone as the supreme guidance. And therefore he is already the chariot driver and counsel of all living beings. When he therefore exhibits himself as chariot driver of Arjuna, there is no change in his exalted position. It is the power of devotional service only that demonstrates him as the chariot driver or the messenger. Since he has nothing to do with the material conception of life or inferior action, since he has nothing to do with the material conception of life, because he is absolute spiritual identity, there is for him no superior or inferior action. Being the absolute personality of Godhead, he has no false ego, and so he does not identify himself with anything different from him. The material conception of ego is equibalanced in him. He does not feel, therefore, inferior by becoming the chariot driver of his pure devotee. It is the glory of the pure devotee that only he can bring about service from the affectionate Lord. Text 22. Yet, despite his being equally kind to everyone, he has graciously come before me while I am ending my life, for I am his unflinching servitor. Purport. The Supreme Lord, the Absolute Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, although equal to everyone, is still more inclined to his unflinching devotee, who is completely surrendered and knows no one else as his protector and master. Having unflinching faith in the Supreme Lord as one's protector, friend, and master is the natural condition of eternal life. A living entity is so made by the will of the Almighty that he is most happy when placing himself in a condition of absolute dependence. The opposite tendency is the cause of fall down. The living entity has this tendency of falling down by dint of misidentifying himself as fully independent to lord it over the material world. The root cause of all troubles is there in false egotism. One must draw towards the Lord in all circumstances. The appearance of Lord Krishna at the deathbed of Bhismaji is due to his being an unflinching devotee of the Lord. Arjuna had some bodily relation with Krishna because the Lord happened to be his maternal cousin, but Bhishma had no such bodily relation. Therefore, the cause of attraction was due to the intimate relation of the soul. Yet because the relation of the body is very pleasing and natural, the Lord is more pleased when he is addressed as the son of Maharaj Nanda, the son of Yashoda, the lover of Radharani. This affinity by bodily relation with the Lord is another feature of reciprocating loving service with the Lord. Bhismadeva is conscious of this sweetness of transcendental humor, and therefore he likes to address the Lord as Vijaya Sakhe, Partha Sakhe, and so on. Exactly like Nandanandana or Yashodanandana. The best way to establish our relation in transcendental sweetness is to approach him through his recognized devotees. One should not try to establish the relation directly. There must be a via medium which is transparent and competent to lead us to the right path. Text 23. So the very important point being made here is that there are different categories of names for the Lord. Just like you may have a friend and you may have a group of friends and they may call you Curly or, some nickname that is due to one physical characteristic you have, Slim or Curly or whatever, maybe other ones that are not so, like sweet. But Krishna, he's like that. He has different categories of names. Some of those names have to do with his qualities, like Jehovah, all-powerful. Allah is all-merciful, like that. And Paramatma is the super soul of all living beings, the Holy Spirit. And but he also has his own personal form, his own personal relationships, his own personal abode. And here, two very sweet ones are used as an example. His name is Nandanandana. Nandanandana means the darling of Nanda. And Nanda is one of his devotees that acts as his father. Krishna is the father of everyone. He can't have a father. But he acts as the son to his pure devotees, who want to have him in that relationship. So, generally, God is approached as the father. And the relationship between the father and the son, as the son's always saying, Daddy, gimme, Daddy, gimme, Daddy, gimme. But when the shoe's on the other foot, and the Lord is the son, and the father is the devotee, then the father is always taking care of the son. In other words, the service is more intimate, it's more sweet, And Yashodanandana the same, the darling of Mother Yashoda, who is acting as mother of Krishna. So these relationships are available in the spiritual world, and because he is unlimited, you don't have to worry about not being able to be motherly to the Lord because he's already got Mother Yashoda. He has unlimited capacity to give relationships to every devotee in the spiritual world simultaneously, without limits. Okay, 23. The personality of Godhead who appears in the mind of the devotee by attentive devotion and meditation and by chanting of the holy name releases the devotee from the bondage of fruitive activities at the time of quitting the material body. Purport. Yoga means concentration of the mind detached from all other subject matter. And actually, such concentration is samadhi, or cent% engagement in the service of your Lord. And one who concentrates his attention in that manner is called a yogi. Such a yogi, devotee of the Lord, engages himself 24 hours daily in the service of the Lord, so that his whole attention is engrossed with the thoughts of the Lord in ninefold devotional service, namely hearing, chanting, remembering, worshipping, praying, becoming a voluntary servant, carrying out orders, establishing a friendly relationship, or offering all that one may possess in the service of the Lord. By such practice of yoga, or linking up in the service of the Lord, one is recognized by the Lord himself, as it is explained in the Bhagavad Gita concerning the highest perfectional stage of samadhi. The Lord calls such a rare devotee the best amongst all the yogis. Such a perfect yogi is enabled by the divine grace of the Lord to concentrate his mind upon the Lord with a perfect sense of consciousness. And thus, by chanting his holy name before quitting the body, the yogi is at once transferred to the internal energy of the Lord, to one of the eternal planets, where there is no question of material life and its concomitant factors. In material existence, a living being has to endure the material conditions of threefold miseries, life after life, according to his fruitive work. Such material life is produced by material desires only. Devotional service to the Lord does not kill the natural desires of a living being, but they are applied in the right cause of devotional service. This qualifies the desire to be transferred to the spiritual sky. General Bhismadeva is referring to a particular type of yoga called Bhakti Yoga. And he was fortunate enough to have the Lord directly in his presence before he quitted his material body. He therefore desired that the Lord stay before his view in the following verses. Text 24. May the Lord, who is four-handed and whose beautifully decorated lotus face, with eyes as red as the rising sun, is smiling, kindly await me at that moment when I quit this material body. Purport. Bhismadeva knew well that Lord Krishna is the original Narayana. His worshipable deity was four-handed Narayana, but he knew that four-handed Narayana is a plenary expansion of Lord Krishna. Indirectly, he desired Lord Sri Krishna to manifest himself in his four-handed feature of Narayana. A Vaishnava is always humble in his behavior. Although it was 100% certain that Bhismadeva was approaching Vaikuntha Dhama just after leaving his material body, still, as a humble Vaishnava, he desired to see the beautiful face of the Lord. For after quitting the present body, he might not be in a position to see the Lord anymore. A Vaishnava is not puffed up, although the Lord guarantees his pure devotee entrance into his abode. Here Bhismadeva says, as long as I do not quit this body, this means that the great general would quit the body by his own will. He was not being forced by the laws of nature. He was so powerful that he could stay in his body as long as he desired. He got this benediction from his father. He desired that the Lord stay before him in his four-handed Narayana feature, so that he may concentrate upon him and thus be in trance in that meditation. Then his mind might be sanctified with thinking of the Lord. Thus he did not mind wherever he might go. A pure devotee is never very anxious to go back to the kingdom of God. He entirely depends on the good will of the Lord. He is equally satisfied even if the devotee desires him to go to hell. The only desire that a pure devotee entertains is that he may always be in rapt attention with thinking of the lotus feet of the Lord, regardless. Bhismadeva wanted this much only, that his mind be absorbed in thinking of the Lord and that he pass away thus. That is the highest ambition of a pure devotee. Text 25. Sutta Goswami said, Maharaj Yudhishthira, after hearing Bhismadeva speak in that appealing tone, asked him, in the presence of all the great rishis, about the essential principles of various religious duties. By the way, this instruction of Bhismadeva to Yudhishthira takes up takes up 300 chapters of the Mahabharata. Just to give you an idea of just how learned a person Bhismadeva was. He was a big warrior and he was on the other side and he's a Mahajan. 300 chapters of the Mahabharata. That's practically a good chunk of the whole Srimad-Bhagavatam. Lord Sri Krishna inspired Maharaj Yudhishthira to ask Bhismadeva in the presence of many great sages, indicating thereby that the Lord's devotee, like Bhismadeva, although apparently living as a worldly man, is far superior to many great sages, even Vyasadeva. Another point is that Bhismadeva, at that time, was not only lying on a deathbed of arrows, but was greatly aggrieved because of that state. One should not have asked him any question at that time, but Lord Krishna wanted to prove that his pure devotees are always sound in body and mind by dint of spiritual enlightenment. And thus, in any circumstances, a devotee of the Lord is in perfect order to speak of the right way of life. Yudhishthira also preferred to solve his problematic questions by asking Bhismadeva rather than asking anyone else present there who was seemingly more learned than Bhismadeva. This is all due to the arrangement of the great wheel carrier, Lord Sri Krishna, who establishes the glories of his devotee. The father likes to see the son become more famous than himself. The Lord declares very emphatically that worship of his devotee is more valuable than the worship of the Lord himself. Text 26. At Maharaj Yudhishthira's inquiry, Bhismadeva first defined all the classifications of castes and orders of life in terms of the individual's qualifications. Then he systematically, in twofold divisions, described counteraction by detachment and interaction by attachment. Purport. The conception of 4 castes and 4 orders of life, as planned by the Lord himself, is to accelerate transcendental qualities of the individual person so that he may gradually realize his spiritual identity and thus act accordingly to get free from material bondage or conditional life. In almost all the Puranas, the subject matter is described in the same spirit, and so also in the Mahabharata it is more elaborately described by Bhismadeva in the Shanti Parva, beginning from the 60th chapter. The Varnashrama Dharma is prescribed for the civilized human being, just to train him to successfully terminate human life. Self-realization is distinguished from the life of the lower animals engaged in eating, sleeping, fearing, and mating. Bhismadeva advised for all human beings 9 qualifications. I'll repeat that. Bhismadeva advised for all human beings 9 qualifications. 1. Not to become angry. 2. Not to lie. Note to Trump. Oh, sorry. 3. To equally distribute wealth. 4. To forgive. 5. To beget children only by one's legitimate wife. 6. To be pure in mind and hygienic in body. 7. Not to be inimical toward anyone. 8. To be simple. And 9. To support servants or subordinates. One cannot be called a civilized person without acquiring the above-mentioned preliminary qualities. Besides these, the brahmanas, the intelligent men, the administrative men, the mercantile community, and the laborer class must acquire special qualities in terms of occupational duties mentioned in all the Vedic scriptures. For the intelligent men, controlling the senses is the most essential qualification. It is the basis of morality. Sex indulgence, even with a legitimate wife, must also be controlled, and thereby family control will automatically follow. An intelligent man abuses his great qualifications if he does not follow the Vedic way of life. This means he must seriously make a study of the Vedic literatures, especially of the Srimad-Bhagavatam and the Bhagavad Gita. For learning Vedic knowledge, one must approach a person who is 100% engaged in devotional service. He must not do things which are forbidden in the Shastras. A person cannot be a teacher if he drinks or smokes. In the modern system of education, the teacher's academic qualification is taken into consideration without evaluation of his moral life. Therefore, the result of education is misuse of high intelligence in so many ways. The Kshatriya, the member of the administrative class, is especially advised to give charity and not to accept charity in any circumstances. Modern administrators raise subscriptions for some political functions, but never give charity to the citizens in any state function. It is just the reverse in the injunctions of the Shastra. The administrative class must be well versed in the Shastras, but must not take to the profession of teachers. Their energy should be especially directed toward killing thieves and dacoits, the black marketeers, and all such undesirable elements of society. The administrators should never pretend to become nonviolent and thereby go to hell. When Arjuna wanted to become a nonviolent coward on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, he was severely chastised by Lord Krishna. The Lord degraded Arjuna at that time to the status of an uncivilized man for his avowed acceptance of the cult of nonviolence. The administrative class must be personally trained in military education. Cowards should not be elevated to the presidential throne by dint of numerical votes only. The monarchs were all chivalrous personalities. We'll give this train a chance to do its thing. Cowards should not be elevated to the presidential throne by dint of numerical votes only. The monarchs were all chivalrous personalities, and therefore monarchy should be maintained provided the monarch is regularly trained in the occupational duties of a king. In fighting, the king or the president should never return home without being hurt by the enemy. Memo to Trump. I mean, there's lots of memos to different people here. Hare Krishna. The so-called king of today never visits the war field. He is very much expert in artificially encouraging the fighting strength in the hope of false national prestige. As soon as the administrative class is turned into a gang of mercantile and laborer men, the whole machinery of government becomes polluted. The Vaishyas, the members of the mercantile communities, are especially advised to protect the cows. Cow protection means increasing the milk productions, namely yogurt and butter. Agriculture and distribution of the foodstuff are the primary duties of the mercantile community, backed by education in Vedic knowledge and trained to give in charity. As the Kshatriyas were given charge of the protection of the citizens, Vaishyas were given the charge of protection of animals. Animals are never to be killed. Killing of animals is a symptom of barbarian society. For a human being, agricultural produce, fruits, and milk are sufficient and compatible foodstuffs. The human society should give more attention to animal protection. The productive energy of the laborer is misused, and when he is occupied by industrial enterprises, industry of various types cannot produce the essential needs of man, namely rice, wheat, grains, milk, fruits, and vegetables. The production of machines and machine tools increases the artificial living fashion of a class of vested interests and keeps thousands of men in starvation and unrest. This is not the standard of civilization. The Shudra class is less intelligent and should have no independence. They are meant for rendering sincere service to the three higher sections of the society. The Shudra class can attain all comforts of life by rendering service to the higher classes. It is especially enjoined that a Shudra should never bank money. As soon as the Shudras accumulate wealth, it will be misused for sinful activities in wine, women, and gambling. Wine, women, and gambling indicate that the population is degraded to less than Shudra quality. The higher castes should always look after the maintenance of the Shudras, and they should provide them with old and used garments. And a Shudra should not leave his master when the master is old and invalid, and the master should keep the servants satisfied in all respects. The Shudras must first of all be satisfied by sumptuous food and clothing before any sacrifice is performed. In this age, so many functions are held by spending millions, but the poor laborer is not sumptuously fed or given charity, clothing, and so on. The laborers are thus dissatisfied, and so they make agitation. The Varnas are, so to speak, classifications of different occupations, and the ashrama dharma is gradual progress on the path of self-realization. Both are interrelated, and one is dependent on the other. The main purpose of ashrama dharma is to awaken knowledge and detachment. The brahmacharya ashrama is the training ground for the prospective candidates. In this ashrama, it is instructed that this material world is not actually the home of the living being. The conditioned souls under material bondage are prisoners of matter, and therefore self-realization is the ultimate aim of life. The whole system of ashrama dharma is a means to detachment. One who fails to assimilate this spirit of detachment is allowed to enter into family life with the same spirit of detachment. Therefore, one who attains detachment may at once adopt the fourth order, namely renounced, and thus live on charity only, not to accumulate wealth, but to just keep body and soul together for ultimate realization. Householder life is for one who is attached, and the vanaprastha and sannyasa orders of life are for those who are detached from material life. The brahmacharya ashrama is especially meant for training both the attached and detached. Text 27. Hare Krishna Nitya. Touchstone. She's a touchstone, in case anybody didn't notice. Touchstone? Touchstone is a stone that if you touch iron, it will turn to gold. Whoever she touches becomes a devotee. Okay. 27. He then explained, by divisions, acts of charity, the pragmatic activities of a king, and activities for salvation. Then he described the duties of women and devotees, both briefly and extensively. Purport. To give charity is one of the householder's main functions, and he should be prepared to give in charity at least 50% of his hard-earned money. A brahmachari, or student, should perform sacrifices. A householder should give charity, and a person in the retired life or the renounced order should practice penances and austerities. Those are the general functions of all the ashramas, or orders of life on the path of self-realization. In the brahmachari life, the training is sufficiently imparted so that one may understand that the world as property belongs to the Supreme Lord, the personality of Godhead. No one, therefore, can claim to be the proprietor of anything in the world. Therefore, in the life of a householder, which is a sort of license for sex enjoyment, one must give in charity for the service of the Lord. Everyone's energy is generated or borrowed from the reservoir of energy of the Lord. Therefore, the resultant actions of such energy must be given to the Lord in the shape of transcendental loving service for Him. As the rivers draw water from the sea through the clouds and again go down to the sea, similarly our energy is borrowed from the Supreme Source, the Lord's energy, and it must return to the Lord. That is the perfection of our energy. The Lord, therefore, in the Bhagavad Gita 9:27 says that whatever we do, whatever we undergo as penance, whatever we sacrifice, whatever we eat, or whatever we give in charity, must be offered to Him, the Lord. That is the way of utilizing our borrowed energy. When our energy is utilized in that way, our energy is purified from the contamination of material inebrieties, and thus we become fit for our original, natural life of service to the Lord. Raja Dharma is a great science, unlike modern diplomacy for political supremacy. The kings were trained systematically to become munificent. The kings were trained systematically to become munificent and not merely be tax collectors. Remember Trump? They were trained, just the opposite. Now they give the tax benefit to the rich and they increase the taxes to the poor. Right. It makes a lot of sense. They were trained to perform different sacrifices only for the prosperity of the subjects. To lead the prajas to the attainment of salvation was a great duty of the king. The father, the spiritual master, and the king are not to become irresponsible in the matter of leading their subjects to the path of ultimate liberation from birth, death, diseases, and old age. When these primary duties are properly discharged, there is no need of government by the people, of the people, by the people. In modern times, the people in general occupy the administration by the strength of manipulated votes. But they are never trained in the primary duties of the king. And that is also not possible for everyone. Under the circumstances, the untrained administrators play havoc to make the subjects happy in all respects. On the other hand, these untrained administrators gradually become rogues and thieves and increase the taxation to finance a top-heavy administration that is useless for all purposes. Actually, the qualified brahmanas are meant to give direction to the kings for proper administration in terms of the scriptures like the Manu Samhita and Dharma Shastras of Parashara. A typical king is the ideal of the people in general, and if the king is pious, religious, chivalrous, and munificent, the citizens generally follow him. Such a king is not a lazy, sensuous person living at the cost of the subjects, but alert always to kill thieves and dacoits, not bringing them close. So, anyway. The pious kings were not merciful to dacoits and thieves in the name of nonsensical ahimsa, non-violence. The thieves and dacoits were punished in an exemplary way so that in the future no one would dare commit such nuisances in an organized form. Such thieves and dacoits were never meant for administration as they are now. The taxation law was simple. There was no force, no encroachment. The king had a right to take a fourth of the production made by the subject. In addition, the king had a right to claim a fourth of whatever wealth the subject allotted for charity or spent for some other purpose. One would never grudge parting with it because due to the pious king and religious harmony, there was enough natural wealth, namely grains, fruits, flowers, silk, cotton, milk, jewels, minerals, and so on, and therefore no one was materially unhappy. The citizens were rich in agriculture and animal husbandry, and therefore they had enough grains, fruits, and milk without any artificial needs of soaps and toilets, cinemas, and bars. Oh, Krishna. The king had to see that the reserved energy of humanity was properly utilized human energy is meant not exactly for fulfilling animal propensities, but for self-realization. The whole government was specifically designed to fulfill this particular purpose. As such, the king had to select properly the cabinet ministers, but not on the strength of voting background. The ministers, the military commanders, and even the ordinary soldiers were all selected by personal qualification, and the king had to supervise them properly before they were appointed to their respective posts. The king was especially vigilant to see that the tapasvis, or persons who sacrificed everything for disseminating spiritual knowledge, were never disregarded. The king knew well that the Supreme Personality of Godhead never tolerates any insult to his unalloyed devotees. Such tapasvis were trusted leaders, even of the rogues and thieves, who would never disobey the orders of tapasvis. The king would give special protection to illiterates, the helpless, and widows of the state. Defense measures were arranged previous to any attack by the enemies. The taxing process was easy, and it was not meant for squandering, but was for strengthening the reserve fund. The soldiers were recruited from all parts of the world, and they were trained for special duties. As far as salvation is concerned, there was a conversation between Srila Prabhupada and Ramaswar Prabhu, who at the time was in charge of the BBT, the publishing arm of ISKCON. And he was doing a lot of really intense and intimate service. So Prabhupada told Ramaswar in the back seat of a car on his way either to or from the airport that these books would become the law books for the next 10,000 years. So when you start to hear this, the details, and visualize what it would be like if all the different sections of society were actually to act as these instructions, explain, what the world would be like, how much it would change. And therefore, although it seems that there's something brewing, a level of dissatisfaction that is secular, where the leaders, all the wealth trickles up, and more and more, and the people in general have less and less. And at some point, because actually all the leaders and rich people, anyone, it's possible by the honest work of the human society, of the citizens. And at one point, the citizens just stand up and say, no, we're not going to do this anymore. You can come down. And that will happen, and always does. I mean, there's chaos in between, but if we, as devotees, even if we can only manage to keep ourselves and a few others moving in this direction, so that we can actually live by these principles ourselves, and teach our children to live by these principles, gradually, by attrition, the world will change. It's going to take 5,000 years, according to Shastra, for this movement of Krishna consciousness to expand to the point where it's at its peak of influence in the world. And then for another 5,000 years, it will gradually decrease, and then Kali Yuga will fully take hold. And believe me, you don't want to be around when that happens. Okay. As far as salvation is concerned, one has to conquer the principles of lust, anger, unlawful desires, avarice, and bewilderment. Now listen to this is one of my favorite parts of the book. Here are these kind of anomalies or not so nice qualities, and a simple suggestion of how can one begin to go in the direction of giving up these negative qualities. Okay? To get freedom from anger, one should learn how to forgive. To get freedom from anger, one should learn how to forgive. To be free from unlawful desires, one should not make plans. By spiritual culture, one is able to conquer sleep. By tolerance only can one conquer desires and avarice. Disturbances from various diseases can be avoided by regulated diets. By self-control, one can be free from false hopes. And money can be saved by avoiding undesirable association. By practice of yoga, one can control hunger. And worldliness can be avoided by culturing the knowledge of impermanence. Dizziness can be conquered by rising up. And false arguments can be conquered by factual ascertainment. Talkativeness can be avoided by gravity and silence. And by prowess, one can avoid fearfulness. Perfect knowledge can be obtained by self-cultivation. One must be free from lust, avarice, anger, dreaming, and so on, to actually attain the path of salvation. I mean, what a paragraph that is. What a paragraph. Prabhupada ki jai. As far as women class are concerned, they are accepted as a power of inspiration for men. As such, women are more powerful than men. Oh, record that. Excuse me, what did you say? Yeah? You're noting, right? You're taking notes, Anna, right?
I'm not this body, it's okay.
Wow. Give her one piece. Give that to her. She gets the Cupid doll. Well said. Well said. As such, women are more powerful than men. Mighty Julius Caesar was controlled by Cleopatra. Such powerful women are controlled by shyness. Therefore, shyness is important for women. Once this control valve is loosened, women can create havoc in society by adultery. Adultery means production of unwanted children, known as varnasankara, who disturb the world. The last item taught by Bhismadeva was the process of pleasing the Lord. We are all eternal servants of the Lord, and when we forget this essential part of our nature, we are put into material conditions of life. The simple process of pleasing the Lord, for the householders especially, is to install the deity of the Lord at home. By concentrating on the deity, one may progressively go on with the daily routine work, worshipping the deity at home, serving the devotee, hearing the Srimad-Bhagavatam, residing in the holy place, and chanting the holy name of the Lord are all inexpensive items by which one can please the Lord. Thus the subject matter was explained by the grandfather to his grandchildren. Bhismadeva ki jai. Okay, we're going to stop the reading there. And now we're going to come to our favorite part of the program. Well, except for the prasad. And that's to reflect on what we've heard. If there's anything that stuck in your mind while you were hearing it, that moved you or that confused you, or whatever. You can give your reflections, give your make your questions or statements or enlightenments. Yes, Hannah, I wouldn't have imagined.
In which of the books does it describe the end of Kali Yuga? And are the effects of that period similar to this age in quality but not quantity?
The Bhagavatam in the 12th canto describes the end of the Kali Yuga. And we've already heard about the beginning of the Kali Yuga. We'll hear actually more detail about the end of the beginning of the Kali Yuga just in the next 2 or 3 chapters. They're just coming up. You're reading the minds of the sages, anticipating. Yeah, it's a cycle, and
Can you repeat her question, Laura? For the internet?
repeat the question.
Yeah, they didn't.
Well, she told me that they can hear. She told me that they could hear.
They're asking if you will repeat.
They're asking.
Yes.
The question is, go ahead, repeat the question.
In which of the books does it describe the end of the Kali Yuga?
In which of the books does it describe the end of the Kali Yuga?
And are the effects of that period similar to this age?
And are the effects of that period similar to this age?
In quality, right?
In quality, not quantity. Yes, the effects are the same of Kali Yuga, but the Kali Yuga is progressive, just like anything in this world is progressive. Even a dead body is progressing. Right? Everything is progressing in one way or another. It's either disintegrating, or it's growing, or it's making a byproduct, or it's, like that. So Bhagavatam explains both, and the reality is that we are now not really technically in the full Kali Yuga. We're in what is called the Sandhya. The Sandhya are transitional periods. They have qualities of both the age before it and after it.
What was the age before?
In this cycle, it was the Dwapara Yuga. Mm-hmm. So this age will have some characteristics during this Sandhya of both the Dwapara Yuga and the Kali Yuga. So therefore, yes, there is a progressive march. Once the Sandhya is over, then the Kali Yuga takes full charge, and there's the whatever residue of the Dwapara Yuga become gradually less. In each age, there are 4 qualities that are the pillars of religious principles, spiritual principles, and they all diminish, as the 4 ages diminish, increase. And at the end of the Kali Yuga, human qualities are practically eliminated, and even the human beings are in stature and size and shape and in activity like animals. Now they're getting some of them to be more like activities and animals and activities, but as Kali Yuga goes, they'll even become shorter in stature, shorter in lifespan, hairier, etc., etc. And at the end, there's an avatar, the Kalki avatar, which, by the way, in the Bible is described also as the apocalypse. And he rides a white horse, and he carries a double-edged sword. Exactly the same image, or the same form, same person, is described in Revelations of the Bible, and in the 12th canto of Srimad-Bhagavatam, and actually the 3rd canto also. And, yeah. Now, within that Sandhya, Lord Chaitanya appears. And with him is inducted a golden streak in the dark age of Kali. And it lasts for 10,000 years. And it begins either with the appearance of Lord Chaitanya, or with the disappearance of Lord Chaitanya, or 500 years after the disappearance of Chaitanya. There are different opinions on that, according to different acharyas, different authorities, who we all accept as authorities. But relative to eternal time, that difference is very insignificant. It doesn't change the basic structure of the whole cycle of time. So Lord Chaitanya's, appearance inducts a golden age within the Kali Yuga. It takes time. We should never, Prabhupada encouraged us, never become discouraged or disappointed that not so many people are coming now. Although in some places they're coming in much larger numbers than there are in America. In the Eastern Bloc and places like that, they're coming quicker because they've had rougher lives and they're not so spoiled by sense gratification as the Western Europeans and Americans and English. So, yeah, stick it out, kids, stick it out.
Does Chaitanya Mahaprabhu come in every cycle?
Chaitanya Mahaprabhu comes after Lord Krishna in one day of Brahma, once in one day of Brahma, in the 28th cycle, Kali Yuga, of a certain day of Brahma. The Brahma's day lasts for 4,320,000 years. That's 12 hours. And his 12 hours night is another same 4,320,000. So the 24 hours of Brahma is 8,640,000,000 years. And Lord Krishna appears once in that day. And there's many, many millions of universes, billions of universes. And Krishna, when he's leaving this universe, he's appearing in another universe. Just like at every moment it's 6 o'clock somewhere on the earth. When 6 o'clock stops here, it's somewhere else. But the sun is the sun is staying the same, but the time is changing. So in the same way, Krishna is like the sun. He moves from one universe to another, and each pastime that ends on one universe is automatically beginning in another universe. So he goes around. He's like doing a tour, It's like he's doing a tour, and kind of like the Warp Tour, Only it's like the real deal, right? And he comes around, once in a day of Brahma. And Lord Chaitanya appears 4,000 years after. Every time that Lord Krishna appears, Lord Chaitanya appears. In the other Kali Yugas, there are also incarnations of Krishna. He says, Yuge Yuge, Pritranaya Sadhunam, Vinachaya Shadustritam, Dharmasam Stapinami, Sambhamami, Yuge Yuge. So, Krishna appears in every yuga. Yuge Yuge means in every yuga. Hare Bol, Hare Krishna. And but he doesn't appear in his original form. He appears in an expansion. Yes, Hannah.
Last one I found. Why must one be free of dreaming?
Why one must be free of dreaming? Well, one can't be free of dreaming in one sense, because the mind is always active, 24/7, except in deep sleep. So there's these states of consciousness. There's a waking state, there's the dreaming state, and there's the deep state of deep sleep. So to be free of dreaming means to be awake. It's a poetic expression. It's poetic. It's not literal. It's poetic. It means when you're aware of who you are, and you're aware that you're a spiritual being, and you're aware that you don't belong here or that you can't stay here eternally, then you're awakening. And when you find out who you are, then you're awake. And when you find out who you are specifically in the spiritual world, and begin to serve Krishna and follow in the footsteps of Krishna's liberated souls in the spiritual world who are in the same mood, who can train you how to be in your original form, then you become fully awake. Yes.
That is text 26.
Text 26.
It says Bhismadeva advised.
It says Bhismadeva advised
For all human beings.
for all
9
human beings
qualifications.
9 qualifications.
The number 7 is.
Number 7 is
Not to be inimical toward anyone.
not to be inimical toward anyone.
And number 9, to support servants or subordinates.
And 9, to support subordinates or servants.
So can you explain that now?
Well, there was an elaboration on it later on in the purport, if you remember. There was a whole little section describing how the workers or the laborers or the people who do the, menial work, how they're treated in a human society. They're treated like family members. You know this, you're Indian. Of course, now it's degraded, so it doesn't happen the way it's supposed to. But in the Vedic culture, the servants, the maid servants, the male servants, how do we say this? The drivers, the different persons who do menial service to serve the higher classes of people who can afford it and who know how to do things. They would treat their subordinates like their children. They would be family members. They would always make sure that they were dressed properly, that they had enough food, that they had enough entertainment, everything. So they weren't dissatisfied. Now there are, systematic laws being passed to try to suppress the people who are not capable of working independently and working and earning a lot of money, becoming rich. And this is the cycle that goes on in human society. At one time the Brahmins were most prominent. The rabbinical class, the priestly, intelligent class of men were like in charge. They were like the prominent persons. And they would advise the kings. The kings were independent, autocrat type persons. They would take advice from the Brahmanas who were studying the Shastra, learning how to actually do things according to the Shastra. The kings would take their advice. Therefore, the Brahmanas would protect Dharma or protect spiritual principles by their words, by their intelligence. And the kings would protect Dharma through their arms, through the force of chastisement and the rod of government. And the Vaishyas, they would produce agricultural products. They would raise and protect the cows. They would mine, and they would trade in the excess, whatever they had excess. They would trade with one another and create businesses and banks and all those kinds of things. They were all going on in the Vedic culture. And the workers were the persons who actually did the practical, work. And these castes now in India, they have been perverted. They're perverted in the sense that there's no social mobility. If a person was born into a family of a Shudra, or a worker, then he's a worker. But in the Vedic culture, if a person who was born into that social stature, but had the qualities of a Brahmin, if you're thoughtful, poetic, intelligent, then he would be accepted as a Brahmin. And the person who's born in a Brahmin, family, but is acting like an animal or a Shudra, which is going on a lot nowadays in India, then he would be labeled and treated such. Brahmabandhu, the family members of the Brahmins and the Kshatriyas, the Vaishyas, they weren't, just like a high court judge, son of a high court judge, he may get some special, vision and even some special inclination and even some training that may help him if he aspires to be a judge, but he won't be accepted as a judge until he's actually educated and he can act like a judge. So that's the difference between the Varnashram system and the caste system that's going on in India now. I mean, if one analyzes every human society, anywhere, you'll find those divisions. It's just that they're exploiting their positions in order to dominate the others. Whereas in the Vedic culture, they would do their duties and cooperate with one another so that Krishna would be pleased. That's the purpose of human society, of the organization of human society, or Daivi Varnashram society, divine society. There's a very nice purport in the Gita. Is there a Gita here? Probably not. We're reading Bhagavatam now. I think it's Yogastha Kuru Karmani Sangam Tyaktva Dhananjaya Siddha Siddha Simodbhutva Samatvam Yoga Uchyate. Do we have one? So let's look this up. Yogastha Kuru Karmani Sangam Tyaktva Dhananjaya. Now the question is, where is it? Where's our scholar? I need a pandit. Pandit? No pandits. Okay, I'm supposed to be the pandit, but I'm not a pandit. I know the verse. Yogastha Kuru Karmani Karmanye Vikaraste. Second chapter. Karmanyar Vikaraste. I may have to look it up. That's why we have books now with indexes. Doing of, okay. Sorry. Yes, here it is. Yogastha this second chapter. It was close. 248. Sorry, I'm a little bit debilitated here. Don't mind. 48, sorry. Getting close. Closer. Yes, I found it. I got, and yeah, slow but surely, sun runs the race. Yogastha Kuru Karmani Sangam Tyaktva Dhananjaya Siddhya Siddhya Samod Bhutva Samatvam Yoga Uchate. Perform your duty, equipoised, O Arjuna, abandoning all attachment to success or failure. Such equanimity is called yoga. And in the last paragraph of the purport, Prabhupada says, Arjuna is a Kshatriya, and as such he is participating in the Varnashrama Dharma institution. It is said that in the Vishnu Purana, that in the Varnashrama Dharma, the whole aim is to satisfy Vishnu. No one should satisfy himself, as is the rule in the material world, but one should satisfy Krishna. So unless one satisfies Krishna, one cannot correctly observe the principles of Varnashrama Dharma. Indirectly, Arjuna was advised to act as Krishna told him. I got there at the end. Hare Krishna.
Number 7 says not to be inimical toward any.
Ah. Well, let's look at the 12th chapter. 12th chapter. 12th chapter. 15th verse. Yeah. This is the 12th chapter, 15th verse. Don't know how I got that because I don't know anything. He by whom no one is put into difficulty and who is not disturbed by anyone, who is equipoised in happiness and distress, fear and anxiety, is very dear to me. It's Krishna speaking to Arjuna. So, Yudhishthira, one of Yudhishthira's names is Ajatashatru. What Ajatashatru means, one whose enemy was never born. But there was a lot of Akshahini soldiers on the opposite side of the field who were ready to kill him. So how can you say that his enemy was never born? Because he didn't see them as enemies. And therefore, as we just read in this chapter we're reading in Bhagavatam, he didn't want to take the throne. Even after the battle was over, and even though he was victorious, he didn't want to sit on the throne. He felt responsible for the death of all the persons in the battle of Kurukshetra. Even though they were only warriors, there were no civilians killed in the battle of Kurukshetra, which is the biggest battle in the more time within the memory over the last 5,000 years. It was much bigger than World War II. And therefore it took Bhishma to convince him to take the position of the king, because he felt guilty for all those souls who were killed and women who became widows and disturbance in human society, and he felt responsible. That's a saint feels responsible. A king, a real king, feels responsible. He's not always trying to aggrandize himself and prove to everyone that he's right and everyone else is wrong, and he's never been wrong, everyone else has always been wrong. So that's what it means. And that quality is very pleasing to Krishna. Means people are doing things all the time that warrant being disturbed, feeling disturbed. But if we don't become the enemies of our enemies, then we become equipoised. And then people can learn from us. No? Okay, what time is it? Yeah, I gotta stop now. I gotta rest my voice for tomorrow morning, and it's gonna take me a little longer to do my morning ablutions with this thing on. So thank you very much, all of you. I'm feeling so happy Krishna's arranged it that I'll stay here more. I won't be going to San Francisco after all. And I will be going eastward, later than I thought because of this, little detour.
So that means you will be here for Kirtan Festival.
Yeah.
Yes.
Very bold.
Well, I'll be like a mosquito buzzing around elephants at that time when all the great honchos are here. But I will be able, I think, to read my offering to Srila Prabhupada here, which I really want to do because it's, according to Dravida, who edits the book every year, it's a blockbuster. So, Hare Krishna. I'll be very happy to do that. Okay? Srimad-Bhagavatam ki jai. Shri Bhismadeva ki jai. The instructions of Bhismadeva to Yudhishthira ki jai. Gaur Premanandi. Thank you everyone. Share and care. Hare Krishna.